Okay, equity compensation is one of those things that there are some pitfalls to it. There are kind of best practices, but I can tell you that a lot of times it's driven more by the personalities of the people that are involved. So equity comp is typically set up as options, restricted stock, or stock appreciation rights, are most commonly used. Stock appreciation rights is not actually equity comp. It's a bonus plan that is paid as if it were equity, okay? So, forget what the internet tells you. It's not actually equity comp. It's just a contract that says if the value of the company goes to a certain point, you get a cash bonus based on that. My only piece of advice on this thing is work with an accountant who can help you through the tax pieces of that, because some of the things that you'll have, some of the tax aspects of stock appreciation rights are a little bit complicated. So, and we're late in the day, so I'm not going to get into any of them. I'm seeing a lot of drawn faces. So let's talk about strategies for each. Okay. Here's the thing about stock options. I prefer them, I recommend them, as opposed to restricted stock or stock appreciation rights. A lot of times my clients don't like them because I think people have a harder time understanding them, but I think that they're kind of the best, most straightforward way to compensate your employees that have the least amount of tax impact. So an option is no different than a land option or anything else. It's a contract that says, look, I'm willing to sell you this pointer at any point in the future for $1, okay? And this pointer in my example is actually shares of stock in the company. I don't care that if in 3 years this pointer is worth $5. I don't care if in 5 years this pointer is worth $10. You have a contract for me that says at any time you can buy it for me for $1, okay? That's how a stock option works, is the same way. It's that I give you an option that says our shares are worth $1 a piece today. I'm giving you a contract that says at any point in the future you can buy this share of stock for me for $1, right? What that allows an employee to do is this. They can sit back on the sideline. If the company is not worth anything in a year and it's gone out of business, they haven't spent the $1 to buy stock, right? So they're not out anything. But if the company is worth $100 a share in a year from now, they get all the upside from doing that. Okay? There's no tax risk to them so long as the option is structured appropriately. Okay? So it's the best of both worlds. I tell people it's like gambling with my grandfather. My grandfather used to take us to Prairie Meadows when we were kids, and he put money on the table, and you could gamble with it. And then if you won, you got to keep everything that you made. If you lost, you lost. Too bad, right? Stock options work the exact same way. You are gambling with my grandfather. You get all the upside, right? You don't have any of the downside. Okay? Restricted stock is different. Okay? Restricted stock says, I'm going to give you something of value today that's worth $1 a share, right? It's going to vest over 4 years. You have to pay taxes on the number of shares of stock at $1 a piece that I give you today, even though you can lose them over time. Okay? Either the company goes out of business, you get fired, whatever. You pay tax today, you may or may not have any value down the road. Okay? I personally think there's some capital gains reasons and other things that holding that for a longer period of time makes sense. I personally think it's a bigger gamble than taking an option. I can tell you that people tell me all the time that there's some psychological benefit to actually having the restricted stock. It's a riskier tax play, okay? Without any real, I don't think it has the same upside, all right? But people go for it all the time. So if you have employees who don't want options and they go the restricted stock route, keep in mind you need to get somebody involved. They need to help you make some of the filings that you'll need to have one way or the other. I think it's riskier, right? I'll take gambling with my grandfather every day. Either way, you need to determine the fair market value of the stock whenever you issue these, whenever you issue either stock options or restricted stock, okay? The fancy name for this is a 409A valuation. That's like, you know, like Carta will sell you a 409A valuation. There'll be consultants that do 409A evaluations. All it is you need to determine the fair market value of the stock.
Get non-qualified up there. Is that the same thing as restricted?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, non-qualified. There's only there's preferred tax treatment for certain employees of stock options. Non-qualified still gets treated like options from a tax standpoint. It's not like restricted stock. But what it does is instead of, there's a chart I can give you, but instead of paying tax starting on when you sell the stock, the underlying stock, like you would with a stock option, incentive stock option, non-qualified you pay tax on the gain essentially whenever you exercise the option. So it's not as tax preferred. It's used for board members, certain larger shareholding employees get non-qualified. That's like that's a longer discussion. I'll give you things, but that's actually pretty straightforward. They still get treated by options. Questions?
So for the determination of the fair market value, is that a date of record or an average of, you know, all days, or?
You have to set it at least once every 12 months. And it's called the strike price for an option or the fair market value of stock whenever you set it. The rules basically tell you it's good for 12 months or until some material factor that changes the value, which is typically if you raise more money at a higher valuation. So that's how you look at it. There's a bunch of methods in the code on how you do that, but in early stage companies, it's just a series of assumptions that you make, basically. You know, I'd work with an accountant or a lawyer who has experience doing that. You can hire consultants to do that. You can get a 409A evaluation from companies, but regardless, it's a third party that comes in and takes some factors into account, runs a valuation metric that they put together and tells you what it's worth. Having something is, I'm sorry.
No, we're going to have to, we are way behind you. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Down the rabbit hole on that one.
All right, so I'm going to skip through. I think I've talked about that. Okay, let's just talk about vesting. Really, commonly vesting is every 3 to 4 years. In 3 or 4 year intervals. It's usually no vesting for the first year and then quarterly thereafter. You can set it up however you want to, but I would tell you commonly 3 to 4 years. Even better if you have some metrics that you use to set that vesting. We could talk about this forever. I apologize, Mike, I did get down a rabbit hole. But, do not issue employee comp that does not have vesting to it. You'll regret it later, one way or the other. Even founder stock, vested. I'll tell you stories.